What's up, everybody? I'm Dr. Carlos Kelly. Thank you for tuning into today's message. We pray that it's blessed you, encouraged you, and challenged you to grow deeper in your faith. Can you do us a favor? Like, comment, and share this message so that others can experience the same life-changing word. Our mandate here at Beulahland Bible Church is to make disciples who make disciples. So as you go throughout this week, remember to be a light and share the love of Christ wherever you go. God bless you, and we'll see you again soon. Peace.
God of grace and God of glory, it is only in you that we live, we move, and we have our very being. Thank you that we do have everlasting life that's only found in the Lord Jesus Christ, that is solidified by our faith in Jesus. Thank you for that assurance. And even now as we've come to worship you, but we've also come to hear from you. So speak, Lord, for we, your servants, are listening. Even now as I stand ready to preach, I dare not preach in my own strength. And so now I yield myself to you, God. Will you hide me behind the cross, so that they won't see Kelly, but they'll see Jesus Christ and him crucified, raised on the third day with all power in his hands. Lord, will you anoint me afresh? I pray now that you would give me clarity of thought, precision of speech, and purity of heart. While at the same time as you are working on me, I pray that you would work on those who are ready to hear. I pray now, God, that they will be sensitive to the Spirit to hear what the Spirit is saying to the church, and that your word will penetrate the hearts of your people so that it could produce fruit in their lives, so they would live transformed lives for your glory. Save in this place. And we ask it in Jesus' name. And the people of God said, amen. Psalm 37, today I'm pausing from our series on relationship. The Lord just burdened my heart with everything that's going on, to be sensitive to the times, to preach a word today befitting for what many are facing. And so I want to look at Psalm 37. I want to center our attention on three verses, beginning with verse 23. Psalm 37, beginning with verse 23. I'm reading from the New King James Version, rather. And here's how my Bible reads. It says, "The steps of a good man are ordered by the Lord, and he delights in his way. Though he fall, he shall not be utterly cast down. For the Lord upholds him with his hand. I have been young and now am old, yet I've not seen the righteous forsaken, nor his descendants begging bread." I simply want to tag this text, never forsaken. Never forsaken. That's what I want to talk about, never forsaken. Look at somebody and tell them you're never forsaken. Yeah, never forsaken. Brothers and sisters, Psalm 37 is a wisdom psalm that was written by David. This psalm was not written when David was just a young lad wet behind the ears. This psalm was written in the evening years of David's life, when he was looking in retrospect back over his life and decides to share wisdom that only time and trials can teach. Here's David as an old sage giving a stern warning. Listen to the warning. 3 times he says, "Do not fret." He says it in verse number 1, "Do not fret because of evildoers." He says it again in verse number 7. He says, do not fret because the wicked prosper. He says it again in verse number 8. He says, do not fret because fretting can only lead you to evil. He is saying, listen, do not fret. That word fret means to burn. It means to boil over. It's that slow simmer of resentment that occurs within you when you see things that seem unfair. I believe we've all struggled with that temptation when you start looking around and seeing things that are unfair. I mean, just the fact that when you scroll through your social media pages and you see folk you know who don't know God and don't live for God, living large and in charge. And here you are trying to do the best you can to live right and to honor God with your life, yet you find yourself struggling just to make it from day to day. That can cause you to fret. And even when you go to work and you go above and beyond the call of duty, trying to give the best of your service, however, your co-workers are always cutting corners. You have a co-worker who's always cheating the system. And yet, in spite of your hard work, your co-worker who is always coming late and leaving early gets the promotion you've been praying for. That can cause you to fret. Even when you go to the doctor and you get a bad report from the doctor. And at the same time, people you know who abuse their body, they eat whatever, they drink everything, they smoke everything, and yet they get a clean bill of health. That can almost cause you to fret. Here you are as a parent pouring into your children, trying to lead them to reverence God, to live with a holy fear of God and to honor God, and yet your children rebelled against you. It's hard to keep them on the straight and narrow path. However, you see other parents who neglect their children, who aren't present with their children, yet they are always boasting about how well their children are doing. It's enough to make you fret. And if you're not careful, that simmer will turn into a boil. It's what Howard Thurman once called the hounds of disillusion that bark at the door of the heart. That nagging voice that says, why bother living holy if holiness doesn't seem to pay? Why keep trusting God if the unfaithful look like they are always winning? That's what fretting does. It makes you bitter when somebody else gets blessed. It tempts you to compare your calling to their comfort. And if you're not careful, it convinces you that God has walked away. But David says, do not fret. And David doesn't speak as someone who has not experienced or encountered any type of hardship. David himself, looking at his life, had reasons where he himself could have began to fret. There are times where he could have felt forsaken. Could have been during that time when King Saul was relentlessly pursuing him, chasing him from cave to cave, where David himself said that there's not but a step between death and me, because Saul was trying to take his life. That could have caused David to fret. Maybe it was during that time when the Amalekites invaded Ziklag, where David once had lived, and while he was away, came and took his family away. Maybe David felt forsaken then, or maybe it was when David's own flesh and blood, his son Absalom, rose up against him and not only tried to take his throne, but tried to take his life. Maybe he felt forsaken, or maybe it was the time that David was surrounded by enemies, and then at the same time, those who were close to him and those he thought who were his friends betrayed him. And yet, standing in the latter season of his life, listen to what David says in verse 25. He said, I once was young, but now I am old, and never have I seen the righteous forsaken, nor his seed begging for bread. In other words, I've had rough days. I've wrestled with some doubt. I've walked through some moments when I felt forsaken. But when I look back over my life, I can say with confidence that every time I needed God, God was always present in my life. Can I suggest that that's not just David's testimony? I believe that's our testimony as well. Because yes, we have gone through some things. We have dealt with some tough times. And even right now, we're in the midst of a government shutdown. But can I tell you that this is not the first government shutdown that we have gone through? And the God that we serve brought us through the last one. And can I tell you, he's going to bring us through this one. This ain't the first time that we had to deal with injustice. This ain't the first time we had to deal with racism. This ain't the first time we've had to deal with crazy leadership. Can I suggest that we've had our back up against the wall? There's been time we didn't know how we were going to make it. But can I tell you that when you check the history, every time we faced a crisis, God walked in on the scene and God made a way out of no way, because God always comes through. I wonder, is there anybody here that can testify over your own life that whenever you needed God, God showed up for you? You can testify like David. In the cave, God was there. In the valley, God was there. On the battlefield, God was there. In the fire, God was there. In the storm, God was there. On the sick bed, God was there. When my family fell apart, God was there. Whenever I needed him, he always showed up. God always shows up. I dare you to high five somebody and tell him God always shows up. Because we are never forsaken. And what I stood to say today is to remind somebody, you ain't going through this by yourself. I don't care who's against you. I don't care what you're facing. I don't care how hard it is. God is with you. That's the assurance we have. Here's my simple sermon focus that I want us to really lean in on. Here it is. Those who trust in the Lord can be assured that his faithful presence guarantees they will never be forsaken. If y'all don't mind, leave that on the screen just a little bit longer, please. Those who trust in the Lord can be assured that his faithful presence guarantees they will never, somebody shout never, be forsaken. Those who trust, those who live for God, those who walk with God have that blessed assurance they will never be forsaken. And so I want to look at this today because I don't even know what tomorrow may bring. In this season, we got to expect anything. But what you can hold on to is the assurances that are found in this text. There are three assurances that are found in verse 23, verse 24, and verse 25 as a reminder that we are never forsaken. So here's the first assurance. It's found in verse 23. Here's what David helps us to understand. Verse 23, number one, the first assurance is God orders your steps. God orders your steps. That great theologian, Dr. Warren Wiersbe, once said that the Christian life is not left to chance. God never improvises with his children. Every step is part of his choreography. That's what David is declaring when he writes, the steps of a good man are ordered by the Lord. Steps are those small, ordinary movements that makes up our lives. They're the choices we make, the path that we take. What David wants us to understand is that our steps are not just random, that our steps are not dictated by luck or happenstance. David says our steps are ordered. They are established by the hand of God. Let's be clear, because what David is not saying, he's not saying everybody's steps are ordered by the Lord. This is not an all-inclusive promise. He says that the steps of a good man, in the Hebrew, that word good points to one who belongs to God. Good, it signifies one who is in a covenant relationship with God. When David says a good man, he is not talking or referring to a perfect man or a sinless man, because David himself was neither perfect or sinless. What he is talking about is that he's talking about a man or a woman who is faithful to God and lived surrendered to God. And if you belong to God, your journey is not left to chance, because your steps are ordered by the Lord. Now you got to get this. They are ordered. Let the church say ordered. That word ordered in the Hebrew is the word kun, and here's what that word kun, it means that it's made firm. It means to be set in place. Here it is, most importantly, it means to prepare in advance. So when David says the steps of a good man are ordered by the Lord, it's not him describing God as a GPS that just points out directions for you. He is saying God himself has already gone before you and established your path. He is saying God makes it firm under your feet so you won't get lost and you won't be forsaken. Here's what it means. He says, while you're wondering about your next step, God has already secured the ground ahead of you. Instead of stressing about tomorrow, God has already gone into your tomorrow and prepared for what you are worrying about today. Here it is. That word ordered is in the past tense. Do you know what that means? That means your future is God's past. I'm saying God is not waiting to see how things are going to turn out. God has already providentially gone before you to make sure to see to it that whatever he has in store for you has already been marked out, carved out, and prepared, so that when you take a step, it's a step of assurance, it's a step of blessings, because God goes before you and God prepares the way he's ordained for your life. Now, here's the tension that we got to wrestle with. Y'all ready? Here it is. If God orders every step, then why do those steps sometime take me into some valleys? Why would a loving God ordain my steps into storms, setbacks, adversities, disappointments, heartbreaks, and delays? Here's the hard truth. When God orders your step, your comfort is not God's priority. Y'all ain't reading the Bible. If you go ahead and read the rest of verse 23, it says God delights in his way. God's intent is not for your path to be easy. God's delight is not to please you. God's delight is to use your journey to please himself and bring greater glory to himself. See, God's intent as he orders your steps is not for you to walk around looking blessed. His intent in ordering your steps is to make you better. And sometimes God's got to take you through some things in order to build your faith so that you can handle what he's taking you into. Okay, here it is. The children of Israel, the route from Egypt to Canaan. Canaan was the promised land. It was 200 miles. 200 miles. The average time from Egypt to Canaan was actually just a couple of weeks. As a matter of fact, some suggest it should have only taken 11 days. But what should have taken 11 days turned into 40 years. Why? Because while God had already prepared the land for them, the people were not prepared for the land. So God had to purge them of their Egyptian mindset. So he used the wilderness to sanctify them and to teach them to trust his word, because their delay was not God's forgetfulness, it was God's formation. And somebody needs to understand that just like Israel, sometime God will order your steps, and sometime the steps will require or involve some pain in your life. Sometime when God ordered your steps, sometimes it will lead to a layoff. Sometime when God orders your step, God will close some doors in your face. Sometime when God orders your step, sometime you will have to go through a financial crisis. Sometime when God orders your steps, sometime God will make some people walk out of your life. Sometime when God orders your steps, sometime God will allow people to backstab and betray you, and sometime it will hurt you. But just understand that what God is doing is God is working in your life. God is trying to strip you of the pride. God is trying to build your endurance. God is trying to teach you how to pray, teach you how to fast, teach you how to look up, teach you how to lean on him, teach you how to walk by faith and not by sight. Before I can bring you into the blessing, I got to make sure you can handle the blessing I got in store for you. Oh, I need y'all to get that. Because listen, church, it's the struggle that makes you strong. And some of y'all ought to shout that the Lord put some struggle in your life. Because if he'd have given you the blessing without the struggle, the blessing would have crushed you. But God built up your endurance. God built up your strength so that when he blessed you, you can handle the enemies. You can handle the rumors. You can handle the backstabbing. You can handle the challenge. You can handle it because God made you strong. God ordered your step. I wish I had time today. And here's the shout. Since God is ordering your steps, if God brings you into something, that means the same God that brought you in is the same God that's gonna bring you out. I wish I had a witness up in here. Somebody's in a valley right now. Somebody's in a dark place right now. But just know that if God brought you in the valley, God is going to see to it that you're going to walk out of that valley. And when you come out, you're going to be better. You're going to be stronger. You're going to be wiser because God is going to bring you out. Look at somebody and tell them, I'm coming out of this. I'm coming out of this looking better. I'm coming out of this praising better. I'm coming out of this with better faith. I'm coming out of this with better faith and better hope and better trust. I'm coming out better. Here it is. God orders your steps. There's a second assurance. Here's a second assurance, and that is this: you're never forsaken. Because not only does God order your steps, but the second assurance is in verse 24. Here it is. God keeps you when you stumble. God keeps you when you stumble. Here it is. David says, though he fall. Notice what he does not say. He doesn't say perhaps he fall. Or might he fall, or by chance he fall. He says, though he falls. Here's what he says. He says, I know you qualify as good. I know the Lord has declared you righteous. But even with your righteous self, you gonna fall. Don't you dare look at me like that. You gonna say something you ain't got no business saying. You gonna do something you ain't supposed to be doing. Okay, let me go ahead and reach my deep folk. You gonna think some stuff you ain't supposed to be thinking. You are going to fall. I like Psalm 73, Asaph, who's that chief musician, that prophet. I like his honesty. He says, my feet had almost stumbled. My steps nearly slipped. For I was envious of the boastful when I saw the prosperity of the wicked. He said, I love God with my whole heart, but I almost fell away when I started looking around and saw all these wicked folk looking good, living good, and here I am struggling. He said, I almost stumbled just by seeing what's going on in the world around me. In church, when you look at the world around you, it's enough to make you stumble. Just consider the fact you constantly watching ICE tear apart families of hardworking men and women with no criminal record, while the same leader handed out pardons to people who stormed the Capitol and beat officers. That's enough to make you stumble. When you see tax breaks handed to the wealthiest 1%, while at the same time they're in a rush to strip millions of people of health care. That's enough to make you stumble. When you're watching how they are slashing and defunding HBCUs and DEI programs that uplift our young people, while at the same time they're allowing billions to flow into corporate companies, that's enough to make you stumble. When you hear leaders labeling American citizens in black and brown communities as the enemy within, while deploying federal troops into urban cities stories, it's enough to make you stumble. When you see executive orders that are aimed at rewriting history and silencing the stories of slavery and segregation and the civil rights struggle, it's enough to make you stumble. And when you hear about the removal of black historical figures and military heroes from government websites as a part of a cultural purge while restoring the names of Confederate leaders who fought for slavery, it's enough to make you stumble. And then when you watch the mass shootings multiply in schools and in churches and in grocery stores, while all our leaders can only offer thoughts and prayers, it's enough to make you stumble. Because when you look around and you see the nonsense, it breaks your heart and causes you to stumble. And that's what happened with Asaph. And that's what David knew, that when you consider the pressure that we're facing in our times, we're tempted to stumble. We're tempted to fall. And church, the Bible says that although we stumble, we're not utterly cast down. I like that, because utterly cast down means to collapse beyond recovery. It means to be thrown down without hope of getting back up. But David says, if you belong to God, if you walk with God, you may stumble, you may fall, but you can get back up again. I like what it says in Proverbs 24:16. It says, for a righteous man may fall 7 times and rise again. Let me go ahead and be honest, because y'all ain't gonna tell the truth in church. I have already fallen more than 7 times. And stop trying to figure out how many times I've fallen, because your count is just like my count. But the good news is, every time I've fallen, is there anybody can shout, God empowered us to get back up again? That's the good news. But remember this, when you fall, you can't get you back up. You need God to get you back up. I like what David says. David says, for the Lord upholds him with his hand. Did you catch that? The Lord upholds him with his hand. God's hand is the hand that raises you back up. God's hand is the hand that's holding you and keeping you from losing it all. I'm talking about the same hands that created the heavens and earth. The same hand that wrote the 10 commandments on the stone. I'm talking about the same hands that parted the Red Sea. I'm talking about God's hand. And God has strong, sure hands. Brother Carson, I know you're a Falcon fan, but I'm a 49er fan. And this past Thursday, my beloved 49ers were playing on Thursday night football. That's a joy to me, because living here in Georgia, I don't get to see them play that much on TV, because I'm too cheap to buy the football pass. So I'm getting a chance to watch it, but you have to understand, we are depleted. All of our stars are injured. Quarterback, tight end, all of our main players are. So y'all, we getting folk off the street to come play for us. It's a hard time, but we got a winning record, unlike the Falcons. And but anyway, we were playing this Thursday night, the LA Rams, and y'all, it was a good game, tight game, went into overtime, and the Rams got down where all they had to do is just running in, just a couple of yards. Matter of fact, I got to the point I just already realized the game is over. We're gonna lose. We gave it our best, but then all of a sudden they handed the ball off to that running back, Kyron Williams. And Kyron Williams had the momentum, and he was getting ready to cross over the goal line. However, right when he got to the goal line, he fumbled the ball. I said, what you talking about now? We got the ball, and we won the game. And I'm sitting here saying they had something that looked sure, but because somebody didn't have sure hands, they fumbled an opportunity. But I'm so glad that God has never fumbled. Whatever is in God's hand always sticks and stays in God's hand. Here's what I love. It doesn't matter how you slip. Your slip ain't stronger than God's grip. That whenever God has his hand on your life, no matter what, God keeps your life together. Can somebody go on and testify that the reason why you looking the way you look today and the reason why you are in church today is because God didn't take his hand off your life? I wish somebody could testify that's why the addiction didn't get me, because God had his hand on me. That's why depression didn't get me, because God had his hand on me. That's why sickness didn't get me, because God had his hand on my life. I wish you'd high five somebody and tell them God's hand is on my life. God's hand is on you. And even when you forsake God, he never forsakes you. But then finally, here's the final assurance. The final assurance that knowing that you're never forsaken is found in verse 25. Here's the assurance. God stands by you in every season. God stands by you in every season. Up to this point, David has been really functioning somewhat like a teacher or an instructor. But now when he gets to verse 25, he takes off his teaching hat and put on his testifying hat. It's like he gets in the witness box and decides, let me tell my own story. He says in verse 25, he said, I once was young, but now I'm old. Never have I seen the righteous forsaken, nor his seed begging bread. He said, I've been through some rough seasons. I've gone through some strain and some struggle, but never have I ever seen God forsake the righteous. And I always see God being faithful to his people. Now watch this. What he says, forsaken, that means to be abandoned. That carries the idea of being left behind with no one coming to your aid. And some of you know what that's like, to be forsaken. You've been forsaken by so-called friends that you thought they were going to be with you all the way to the end. But when times got thick, they thinned out on you. Some of you have been forsaken by family members. Folk you really thought you could lean on and count on. But then you soon discovered that just because you blood don't mean you have a real bond. And then some of y'all have been abandoned by church members. Don't look at nobody. But folk that you serve with and worship with and come to church with, you thought that you could lean on them. But when you needed them, they were nowhere to be found. And what David is showing us, he is showing us that people will forsake you. But here's the promise. Although people may forsake you, God will never forsake you. Here's what he is saying. He is not saying that you will never struggle. He is not saying you won't suffer. He is not saying that you will never face hunger or never lose a job or never have to cry. He is saying you will go through seasons of insufficiency. But what the promise is that you will never have to go through it alone. You will always have God standing by your side. See, I think some of us miss really what the whole point of verse 25 is all about. Because verse 25, church, is really not about bread. I know we like to quote it when we're talking about provision. We run to Psalm 37, verse 25. But can I tell you, it's really not about bread. It's about God. Be careful of only celebrating provision. Because really what David is celebrating is presence. While you shouting over provision, be careful, because that means your shout depends on provision. So when provisions run low, or when provisions are scarce, then it affects your shout and it affects your faith. But when you're leaning on presence, even when provisions are scarce, you ain't tripping because you got his presence. Because you know if God is present, some way, somehow, he gonna make a way out of no way. See, y'all ain't catching this. God is not like some deadbeat dad that don't show up. And when he do show up, God always makes sure he supplies everything that I need. I'm trying to tell you, if you got his presence, you got his provision. Have I got a witness? So here's what I'm trying to tell you. He's saying, when I was young, but now I'm old. And when I look through every season and every stage and every phase of my life, one thing is consistent through it all. I know one thing: God was there every step of the way. He was there in the valley. He was there when I was on the battlefield. He was there when I had enemies. He was there when I stumbled. I'm simply saying God is always there. And that's why you ought to shout today, because God gonna stand by your side regardless of what season you are in. See, there are some people whose loyalty is conditional. That when you are acting right, then they act right. But when you act all funny, then they start acting funny. But somebody ought to praise God that even when you acting funny, even when you ain't acting right, God still walks by your side, and God is still an ever-present help even in the time of trouble. I need you to just turn and look at your neighbor and say, neighbor, I thank God for the provision, but say, neighbor, I just want God's presence. Yeah, I thank God for the bread, but I want the source of the bread, because as long as I got God, I got everything that I need. Is there anybody in here that can thank God that you can have God and lose everything and still have enough to start all over again? I gotta get out of here, but I gotta tell somebody, just keep on leaning on God. Just keep on trusting in God and believing that he'll never leave you nor forsake you. That's what I'm standing on, because y'all, I've realized that no matter what happened in this life, you cannot take one thing from me. You can't take my relationship with God away. You can repossess my car. You can foreclose on my home. You can fire me from a job. But one thing you cannot take is you can't take my walk with God. Is there anybody in here that can say, as long as I got God, I got everything that I need? Because when you got God, you got a friend that's sticking closer than a brother. When you got God, you got somebody who knows how to mend your broken heart. When you got God, you got somebody who can give you peace of mind. When you've got God, you got joy, unspeakable joy. I gotta get out of here, but I can thank God I still got God. I don't know what they're gonna do in the White House, but it don't even matter, because that's out my control. But one thing I know, that the same God that's been with me ever since I was a boy is the same God that's walking with me right now. He sits high and he looks low. He's still on the throne and he's in absolute control. Ain't God all right? That's the reason why I know it's gonna be all right. You ought to look at somebody and say, neighbor, oh neighbor, stop worrying about it. Say, neighbor, it's gonna be all right, because we've been made endure for the night, but joy is gonna come in the morning. Have I got a witness in here? But look how good God is. David says, I was once young, but now I'm old, and never have I seen the righteous forsaken. But watch this, his seed begging for bread. The God we serve won't just take care of you, but he'll take care of your children. How many parents I got in here? Y'all know how it is. You walk the floor at night worrying about your children. You lay on the floor covering them in prayer. There are some times you've been stressed out because you didn't know where they were. But the good news is that the same God that watched over you, the same God that was with you when you was in the club and when you was getting drunk and when you were doing your business, the same God that pulled you through is the same God is gonna watch over your children. He's the same God that's gonna make sure whatever they need is gonna be taken care of. I'm trying to help somebody, so go to sleep and lay your burden down. Go on and rest and let God work the night shift. Let God handle it, because God neither slumber nor sleep. He'll watch over them. He'll take care of them. He'll lead them. He'll guide them. And when it's your time to cross over to Jordan, you can leave with assurance. The same God that walked with me is the same God that's gonna be with my children. Ain't God all right? Won't he do it? Won't he do it? Won't he, won't he, won't he? Won't he do it? Say yeah. Oh yeah. 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 Ah yeah. I dare you to high five 3 people and tell them, never forsaken, never forsaken, never forsaken. It does not matter what you're going through. He won't forsake you. He won't abandon you. He won't leave you. He's right there. He walks with me. Oh, nah. He talks with me. He tells me that I am his own. Ain't God all right? Yeah. Won't he be there? Yeah. Won't he be there? Say it. Never, 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 never forsaken. Never forsaken. Every person standing, never forsaken. Here it is. God orders your steps. Listen to me. God orders your steps. I want you to hear me. God has already gone before you, and he's laid the path that he's ordained for your life. That's why you can't lean on your own understanding. That's why you got to trust him, because he's ordering your steps. But listen to me, listen. Since God is ordering your steps, your job is to pay attention to the steps he's ordered. Which means I ain't got time to be trying to watch other folks step. I ain't got time to be comparing my steps to their steps, because we are on two different journeys. What God has for me, it is for me. So I can't afford to waste time to see where you stepping, where you going with your life, because I'm trying to make the best of my life. He orders your steps, but then he keeps you when you stumble. Which means when I have those weak moments and I stumble, I don't have to stay down, because a righteous man may fall 7 times, but he gonna rise again. Why? Because the Lord upholds him with his hand. He picks you back up again. Tell somebody you can get back up. You can get back up. And you have the assurance that God stands by you in every season, which means there's never been a season in your life where you had to try to make it without God. When you put your faith in God, here's what happened. You qualify for full coverage. That's 24/7, 365. God's covering you every day of your life, standing by your side. That's the promise. But the promise